Good afternoon, everyone. A very warm welcome to this afternoon's presentation of the Task 8 for the June exam for the Grade 6 English Home Language. We're going to take a quick look at a few key points. Just before we begin, my name is Marita Gereke. You should know me by now. And then just before we begin, I just want to cover some of the basics. I just want to make sure, can you hear me? If you are struggling to hear me, just make sure that your audio is on and that your speaker volume is turned up. You will automatically be muted when you are joining this meeting. So this means that I won't be able to hear you. But if you have any questions, please post your questions in the private chat and I will answer them at the end of the class. Right, so topics we are covering today is, as we already said, the task 8 of the June exam. Now, task 8 consists of 3 sections. Okay, you've got your section A, which is your comprehension, and your section B, which is your summary, and section C, which is the language. Right, now let's take a look at section A. Section A is your comprehension. So what can you expect from the comprehension part of your paper? Right, now there's certain types of questions that you need to look out for. You know, in section A, you will come across a question 1 and a question 2. Your question 1 is usually a reading passage that you will have to go and read and then answer the questions afterwards. Right, now, just a tip from my side. Please go and read your passage, then read through your questions, and then go and read your passage one more time before you start answering your paper. Right. It gives you an idea of what to look out for specifically, because remember, your examiner wants to see, do you understand what you've read? Can you give the information over? Right, so when you are writing creative writing and you have written your task 6, well, you've done your task 6 and you've written your task 7. Now, task 6 was your oral, your unprepared reading, and your listening comprehension. But now your task 7, which was your writing, this is where it gets tricky for some of our students. I know some of you hate creative writing, but this is actually a very, very nice paper. All right, so when you write creative writing, for example, I always tell my students that there is 5 secret questions that you need to answer, especially on your mind map when it comes to writing any piece. All right. So what you're going to get probably in as questions in your comprehension will probably be part of these 5 part of these 5 tips that I can give you. So 5 of these, the 5 questions or the 5 keys that I usually give my learners is the who, the what, the where, the when, and the how. Now, I can promise you, you probably won't get all 5 of them in the comprehension test, but you will at least get 2 to 3 of these questions in your comprehension. So read very, very carefully. Then another type of question that they will probably ask you is a yes or no answer. And then you have to give a reason for your answer. Now, guys, what is awesome about a question like this is the fact that there is no right or wrong answer. Why am I saying that? Well, there is a right or wrong answer depending on what your reason is. If your reason makes sense, there's no way that you can lose marks on this question. So the simple thing is just make sure that your reason makes sense. Again, you can score the 2 marks, the full 2 marks. Another thing that they would want to know probably is something like an explanation. Explain why something is that way or why not. Another thing is, let's use an example. Let's say the passage that they give you has got to do with 7 activities when visiting the zoo. 7 activities when visiting the zoo, right? Now, your examiner is probably going to ask you to list 2 or 3 of those activities that you would like to do. Okay, again, you've got 7 possible answers. So to list only 2 or 3 of them is awesome. Again, you cannot exactly get that wrong. Right, when you move on to question 2, though, which is your visual text, you guys are all visual learners. You grew up with technology and you grew up with a lot of pictures and stuff like that in your learning material nowadays. So visual text has got to do with a cartoon, an advertisement, or any kind of picture. Even if you have a look at this slide and this picture, I can ask you questions about it and you will be able to answer me. All right, cartoons we know is probably the cartoonist has something to say, usually. All right, so when I ask you questions on this and when this appears in a comprehension test, it is mainly to see if you do understand what the cartoon is trying to tell you or what the advertisement is trying to tell you. Right, so again, your secrets, your 5 secrets, right? Your where, when, what, how, who. Okay, again, guys, you won't receive all 5 of them, but I mean, 2 of them is better than nothing at all. Right, then a very, very popular question, not only on the visual text, but definitely on a comprehension, is what is your opinion? Give your opinion, all right? Also, just to see if you do grasp the idea or the message that they want to convey. All right, that takes care of your section A or the comprehension part of your paper. We're going to move on to section B, which is your summary. Okay, so summary, same thing. You're also going to get a passage or a text to read, usually a smaller type of text. It won't be the same amount of words that you will get in a comprehension, for example. Now, usually the text that they use here has got to do with tips on, let's say, gardening tips, 7 gardening tips. Now, these paragraphs are already numbered, usually, when they give it to you. All right, so very important, if we talk about a summary, it means that we want you to summarize something. What am I doing when I'm summarizing? I'm taking out the most important part of a paragraph and relaying that information. True? Yes. Okay, so as I already said, that your paragraphs will probably already be numbered, which makes it a little bit easier, because if I tell you that the title is 7 gardening tips, obviously there's going to be 7 facts. All right, so now every paragraph, you know from writing that every paragraph has got a main idea, something that it wants to tell the reader. Okay, so take out the main idea of every numbered paragraph and use these highlighted sentences to write your summary. Summaries is usually at your age still a little shorter. All right, as I said, the text or the passage that they will give you will probably be around about 100 to 150 words, no more than 200 words, which they want you to shorten. All right, you will probably get something like 40 to 50 words to summarize. And then you have to make sure that at the end of your summary, you indicate how many words you have used. All right. obviously everything we do is in preparation of grade 12. So I want to give you a little tip. If you write more than the allocated or the number of words that your examiner wants, what happens at the end of grade 12? The examiners physically go and count your number of words, because we do have an eye to see, okay, whoa, this is a lot more than which was allowed in word count. All right, so they go and physically go and count your words, and then you could only use 50 words. Let's say you used 80. Now the examiner is going to count your words and only mark the facts up to 50. So if you could have all your facts true in the 80 words, but the examiner will stop marking at 50 words. So please, please, please stick to the allocated word count. All right, and then again, as I said, please indicate how many words you've used just after you've written your summary. Right, previously I said your paragraphs will probably already be numbered, but that does not mean that the fact is, or the main idea is what is numbered. All right, so when you go and write your summary, number your sentences. Okay, so main idea of paragraph 1 is my number 1. All right, then very, very important, use your own words as far as possible. Why am I saying that? If I quote directly from the passage, I will still get my marks for the facts that I'm giving. But 3 of the marks out of the 10 for this question or this section has got to do with the language that I used. If I used or quoted directly from the passage, I lose all 3 of those marks. Okay, but if I used my own words, even if I changed here and there only in the sentences of the passage, that's my own words. All right, so use your own words as far as possible. It's the easiest 3 language marks you'll ever score. Right, then the last thing to remember is write in full sentences. Right, now guys, full sentences does not necessarily mean that it needs to be 8 to 10 sentences, all right? Or 8 to 10, listen to me, 8 to 10 words. Okay, a sentence can be 4 or 5 words, as long as all of the information and all of the facts are there. All right, so do not go out and write paragraphs as a sentence. You can stick to short sentences. Then we're moving along to section C, which is the language part. Guys, okay, so here's a tip from me. In your study guide that you received from Impact, if you open it up, you will get your table of contents or your index that tells you in week 1, you're going to do this and this activity. It's going to be reading, it's going to be listening, it's going to be writing, and it's going to be some language. Now, just after that page, after your table of contents, is this page that says lesson elements. Now you can see here that there's icons used over here. I call them emojis. So I tell my students, go to your emoji. All right, so this is your icon or emoji that gives you an idea of what to go and study. Now you will see that the first one says vocabulary. Usually that indicates when there's a reading piece, what is new or what may be new words to you. When there is important information, when there's tips, and then this one, the red circled one, is a paper with a magnifying glass. Now here is your language structures and conventions. Whenever you see this emoji or icon, it will give you information on the language. So this will probably tell you, okay, we've got to do with collective nouns over here, or we've got to do with verbs, or we've got to do with active and passive voice. And they explain it to you. That explanation, it's short pieces, guys, short pieces. So that explanation is the language that you can go and study. Okay, you will probably in your language section also get another passage, and they will ask you, give a synonym for the word like in paragraph 1, for example. All right, so language, you know, is the direct and the indirect speech, the changing of sentences or from past tense to future, for example. That is your language structures. Okay, so you guys should have all seen Pink Panther by now. I'm sure of that. Now, in Pink Panther, there's a detective, right? What does that detective use? He uses a magnifying glass. Why? Because he needs to go and find the clues. Okay, so here's your language clues. Here is your language clues. Right, guys. So if you need to go and look something up, term 1 and term 2, the language that was covered in term 1 and term 2, all these icons will indicate it. So please go and have a look at that in your study guide. Right, that is my sing and dance for today. Are there any questions? Okay, seems not. Then from my side, guys, I just want to say good luck. I will be your cheerleader from the side. I'm holding thumbs for you. You've got this. You can do this. All right, so please go and download this presentation by clicking on the download option in the bottom left corner. If you have any other questions, please send your questions to info@impact.co.za. Have a wonderful afternoon and good luck on task 8.